I wasn't just a magical girl obsessed anime fan when I was younger. I was also an avid Hannah Montana enthusiast. I was of the perfect age demographic when the show came out, even if it somehow wasn't cool anymore to watch it at my school. But by 2007, I'd seen every episode. I knew every Hannah Montana and Miley Cyrus song because there was a difference. I cried when I didn't get to see her and the Jonas Brothers in concert in December of that year. And I had written my own mildly successful Hannah Montana Jonas Brothers fanfic with self-insert characters. It was serious for me. And on a genuine note, it absolutely wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the Hannah Montana 2 Meet Miley Cyrus album is part of what inspired me to start taking singing seriously. Serious enough to study it in college a decade later. Deep cuts like As I Am and Bigger Than Us are songs where an 11-year-old me taught herself how to sing with vibrato for the first time. Real music fans know. So all of this is to say, when I stumbled across an anime called Full Moon wo Sagashite around this same time, it should have been a recipe for success for me. The main character, Mitsuki, was just a couple of years older than me, and she too had big dreams of becoming a singer. The opening and ending songs from the show were so incredibly catchy that I promptly went onto LimeWire and put them onto my video iPod. All of these stars aligning, and yet I didn't get past episode 1. The reason for that being, I'm 11 years old and I don't want to watch a show about death and dying. I mean, it's made very clear from the first 5 minutes of the show. Mitsuki loves to sing, but she can't vocalize well because of a tumor in her throat. Her fate becomes even more apparent when 2 Shinigami, or death spirits, come to visit her and inform her that with her health, she only has a year left to live. How can she possibly achieve her love-tangled dreams of singing if not only is the tumor preventing her from doing so, but on top of that, she's been given a time limit on her life? Well, it didn't matter because my preteen self wasn't gonna stick around to find out. I couldn't understand this. Why would I want to watch something that sounded so openly sad and depressing? On top of that, it's basically telling me how the story is going to end. Why bother? Well, spoiler alert, I couldn't have been more wrong. But I forgive my 11-year-old self because she probably wouldn't have connected with Full Moon as deeply as I do today. Full Moon wo Sagashite is much more than a what would you do if you only had a year to live story. And I'm not just saying that to be deep, there's so much going on here. What do you mean the death spirits tasked with collecting her soul grow an affinity for her and instead use their magical powers to age her up to a healthy 16-year-old version of herself so she can audition for a record label? What do you mean this series surprisingly and eloquently tackles the corruption of the music industry and the downsides of fame in the quaint year of 2002. All of this while exemplifying that it takes a village to raise a child and a team to build a dream? I mean, where do I even start? Why don't we circle back to the start of my entire spiel, because I didn't mention Hannah Montana for no reason. How is the outward concept of this show so Hannah Montana coded? Or shall I say, why is Hannah Montana so Full Moon coded? Girl who is magically given a secret identity to live out her dying wish and singing dream. Girl who has a secret identity to live out her singing dream while still being a normal teenage girl. And they're both blonde. I mean, come on. Who was the weeb at Disney? I only recognize these similarities maybe halfway through watching Full Moon, but once the thought entered my head, it would not leave. I became so convinced that Full Moon had to have inspired Hannah Montana's conception because there's no way. My aching theory proves to be false, though. The internet seems to bear zero results of these series having any sort of relation, aside from one LiveJournal user who seems to be on my team, and an AMV made in 2007 set to the best of both worlds. Oh yeah. But the concept and appeal to young girls remains constant for both series. Didn't all of us have hairbrush microphone moments in our bedrooms listening to our favorite music artists? Don't lie, I saw you doing that the other day. But obviously it's not just the dreams of becoming a singing pop star that make Mitsuki's story a classified shoujo. Not when her romantic love interest plays such a huge role in her desire to become one. Ichi-kun, Ichi-kun, Ichi-kun. What would Full Moon have been without this boy of fairy tales? Mitsuki loves him. Takuto, the male death spirit, kind of hates him even though he doesn't know him. Take a wild guess who his heart belongs to. And we, the audience, just want to know where the heck he is. Mitsuki met this boy when they both lived in an orphanage and became very close, up until he moved away to America with his adoptive family. But not before confessing his love to Mitsuki and making a promise that they'd meet again once they accomplished their dreams. And with not a smidgen of contact information exchanged, you watch this and often find yourself saying, gosh, if only it weren't the year 2002. A quick Facebook search would have saved Mitsuki so much time and pain. I mean, like, not even emails. AOL Instant Messenger screen names. How frustrating. Maybe I was born in the right era. But this kind of elusive image of Eiichi that Mitsuki has kept in her heart is part of what keeps her singing. The thought of finding and meeting him again, finally saying I love you too, helps her write her first single, helps her land all of these commercials, and eventually release her first album. We're about to head into spoiler territory, so here's your warning if you haven't watched or read Full Moon. Watching the show, you kind of have this looming bad feeling about Eiichi from early on. Like, every flashback Mitsuki has of him almost paints him as this angelic entity, and looking back at it, that was probably on purpose, because once episode 41 hits, everything pretty much changes. Mitsuki as Full Moon won a competition where the grand prize was a trip to America, so she and her small team, aka Oshige-san, her manager, and Wakaoji-sensei, her producer who doubles as her hunky cancer doctor, take this opportunity to explore the leads they've been given on Eiichi's whereabouts, only to discover that the boy that Mitsuki has spent 2 years dreaming of, the one who inspired her to keep singing and really to continue living her life for the next year, died in a car crash with his family 2 years ago. The raw heartbreak of this is so palpable that it's straight up difficult to watch Mitsuki slip into this deep depression in the following episodes. And I'm sorry it may seem like I've skipped ahead to this final episode arc, but this reveal happens super early on in the manga, like volume 3 early, and the manga's execution is totally different. It's really interesting and kind of jarring how different the pacing is in the anime versus the manga, but I think the anime wins me on this front because it made the pit in your stomach all the more deep to find out at the same time as Mitsuki that after 41 episodes, the guy that's been keeping Mitsuki's spirit alive hasn't even been alive himself. Like, now what do we do? It's not even just Mitsuki that's heartbroken. Takuto, Meroko, Oshige-san, Wakaoji-sensei, they've all been helping her, working with her, building this dream that is Full Moon. They knew how much this meant to her, and it tears them apart as well. Hell, I didn't know how Mitsuki was gonna bounce back from this one. But this struggle and resolution brought about one of my favorite aspects of this series. Full Moon is Mitsuki, but the idea of this idol, Full Moon, was created by everyone. Takuto, who helped her grow wings for a few flashy performances. Meroko, who transformed into Mitsuki many a time to protect her idol identity from her overprotective grandmother. Every fan and character Mitsuki has met along the way and touched the lives of. Full Moon is for everyone. Everyone played a part in the growth of Full Moon. Singing for them is what has kept Mitsuki alive. And this thought of community and singing for all of the people she loves, her friends, her housekeeper, her changed grandmother, is what prevents her from jumping off of the hospital roof. Yeah, this shit gets real dark here. I almost had to take a break from watching because of how sad I felt watching this arc. But that message of Full Moon being a labor of community love really brought me back in. Like, it reminds me of how Chapel Roan, for example, calls her singer identity a project. The idea of referring to it as a physical art piece. I'm obsessed. And speaking of pop music idols like Chappell Roan, like Miley Cyrus, and even a big one at the time of Full Moon's release, Britney Spears, the series really surprised me with how realistically it depicted just how tough the music business is on young women in an anime and manga series. Well, okay, realistically where they could, but Mitsuki's experience was far from rainbows and sunshine. Harsh and sketchy executives, unruly tabloids, invasive parasocial fan behavior. They kinda had it all here. But this show had me 100% engaged every time Madoka Wakamatsu was on screen. I hated this girl. Full Moon's self-declared singing rival and an absolute menace for what felt like no reason at first. I found it funny how in the anime they have her tearing Full Moon's costumes to shreds right before she has to go on stage. And in the manga, she's like stealing lyrics that Mitsuki wrote. Doesn't matter what she does, just make her as unlikable as possible. She wasn't actually the one who stole the lyrics, but you get the picture. Turns out this girl has actually had it pretty rough in the industry. I mean, Madoka's just about as old as Full Moon, and yet set workers on her own shoots and music fans on the streets are calling her a has-been. Like, her frontal lobe hasn't even fully developed. But you begin to understand why Madoka behaves the way she does. This is a tough, unforgiving business, and she's doing what she feels she must do to stay above water. Whether that means getting plastic surgery, which you do you, girl, or sabotaging the newcomer who's taking all of her precious opportunities. If you don't feel sorry for her, you'll at least understand the pressure she's under. Her actions don't come without comeuppance though. I think my favorite episode of the series is episode 27, when her act of sabotage against Full Moon becomes so severe that even her producer recognizes it, and takes this to mean that she has no faith in his ability to make her song popular with his own hard work. He tells her that after this project, they will no longer be working together, and it tears Madoka apart. Ugh, it's so good. It's so good. Because Madoka isn't acknowledging her insecurities head on, she's hurting herself and the people around her. And it ties right back in with the idol Madoka Wakamatsu being this project that is worked on by a team, a village of people, and how the nurturing of this team matters to build a dream. Ah, it's so good. Okay, let me breathe. I know this isn't Madoka's anime, but I just found it so interesting. The music industry part of this anime was just done so well. The manga I found, however, doesn't focus as intently on the little intricacies of the industry. With a run of 52 episodes, it definitely gave the writers more space to expand on things like that. And I think giving more attention to the photo shoots and the live show aspects of Full Moon made more sense to create a flashy and appealing idol show for teenagers to enjoy. It doesn't take away from the story at all for me, but it does mean that the manga ends up being all around way darker than the anime. You know, while we're here, why don't we talk about the differences between the manga and the anime? When starting on this video, I began by watching and reading Full Moon at the same time. However, I quickly realized that I was going to have to choose one or the other first. Arina Tanemura is the mangaka who created Full Moon wo Sagashite, but it's common for an anime adaptation to get picked up early on in the manga production and worked on by a different staff completely, with input from the mangaka when needed. So what you can end up with are two of the same story, but basically in a different font. I read the manga last, and oh my dear, I wasn't ready. In the anime, there's no real origin story given as to why people become Shinigami death spirits, but in the manga, those who take their own lives are given the task to collect human souls in the afterlife once they die. Such a tragic explanation probably wouldn't have gone over well in a TV show that was airing with cute cat and bunny mascot characters appealing enough for kids to watch. I mean, my 11-year-old self was too scared to watch it, and that wasn't even a storyline present in the animation. And remember how I said that Mitsuki finds out that Eiichi has been dead for 2 years in episode 42? Well, in the manga, Mitsuki been knew. She been knew he was dead. The way he passes is also different, but the bigger aspect is how Mitsuki has been lying to the Shinigami about Eiichi's death because she doesn't want to confront this fact. Confronting it makes it real. What's more devastating is the realization that because of this, Mitsuki wants to die. She wants to reunite with Eiichi in the afterlife. So refusing a risky but life-saving throat cancer surgery isn't so much about Mitsuki wanting to continue singing as it is about her not wanting her life to be saved in the manga. Here, she has nothing left to live for until she meets Takuto. Oh boy, is the romance, amped up in the manga. It was fun reading Arina Tanemura's sidebar notes because you really got the vibe that she really enjoys writing shoujo romance. I can't think of a single character who ended up single. Madoka has a romance with a pretty boy idol. Oshige-san and Wakaoji-sensei were getting hot and heavy by the end. Mitsuki's grandmother had an arguably sapphic love triangle experience when she was younger. Everybody was getting it on. Meroko, who is all about Takuto in the anime, confesses her love to a totally different Shinigami altogether, Izumi, who has more of a mainstaying role in the manga, I'd say. I kind of like this though, because as much as I was touched by Meroko's fate in the anime, her becoming an angel and all, I mean, I cried like a baby, I really appreciate her getting her happy romance ending here like she wanted, because there was no way she was getting between the fiery love going on between Takuto and Mitsuki in the manga. Every time I see it, I'm like, oh my god. Why does he push her onto the bed like that? That hair kiss? Takuto, you dog. Cat, you cat. And can we talk about the vague age gap differences here? All Shinigami in the manga die at different ages, but they seem to rematerialize as 16-year-old versions of themselves. Izumi died when he was 6 but wakes up as a teenage-ish Shinigami. Meroko has been dead for decades but remains looking 16. Takuto is approximately 22 to 24 when he takes his own life and becomes a Shinigami, so it's implied that he also becomes 16 when they meet Mitsuki, who is 12. But then you have the ending and he's still supposedly 22, 24, and Mitsuki is like 13 by the end of the manga, but she's she's 13 in the anime, but then she's 16 in the manga, and it's still like it's still not great. It's definitely hazy and a bit frustrating when you're talking about death spirits and frozen in time ages. And this is like the second video in a row where I'm having to address something like this. So I'm just going to recenter myself and move forward. Clearly, I'm trying to tell you guys a lot while not giving too much away if you haven't seen it, because this is a series with messages that moved me very deeply. There's a big reason why the Shinigami characters come in with the intention of simply taking Mitsuki's soul once she dies, but change all of their resolves to preventing her foretold death. Mitsuki is a very pure character. She's reserved, she's shy, she hasn't seen or experienced much of the world because of her illness, but she holds this love in her heart for Eiichi and for her family and her friends that the Shinigami have either forgotten about in all of their years of being dead or never got to experience themselves. She doesn't even hold contempt for Madoka after all that she puts her through because she sees and wants to understand her hurt. How can you see this super nice, pure of heart girl and do nothing when she slips into a depression because the love of her life is dead? The answer is you can't do nothing. It's impossible. And that's where the anime and manga merge in their messages on why it's worth living. This is crazy. What a scary, huge thing it is to take on a message like this in a story written for a teenage demographic. I don't know how Arina Tanemura found the courage to write something like this, but she executed it so beautifully. Even though the anime and manga have different aspects of their core plot, they come to similar resolutions. The anime has Takuto recalling his past to Mitsuki despite the consequences of doing so, because he also suffered from throat cancer when he was a human. He doesn't want Mitsuki to make the same reckless mistakes he made and tries to convince her to keep singing with no regrets, because that's how she can keep the love of those who have passed on alive. Giving up is the last thing Eiichi would want her to do. And not just for him, but for the people around her. Her family, her friends, the ones who believe in her and her dream, Meruko, Takuto. She has to keep believing in the love people are giving her, because this love is powerful, and it's enough to give everyone the happy ending they wanted. When I tell you I was sobbing, it's been a hard several weeks and I was a wee bit too fragile to be watching this, to be honest. Given this, I think it would have made sense for me to be a total wreck when reading the manga, but I was surprisingly okay. With the early knowledge of Eiichi being dead, it is much more dramatic in its story, and I'd say Mitsuki is way more understandably emo here, but I think the manga's message explains the title, Searching for a Full Moon, so poetically that it can't be beat. By the final chapters, we learn that Mitsuki's previously etched in stone name on the underworld death list has been gradually fading. Why? Because she met Takuto, Meruko, and Izumi. They're granting her wish, helping her live out her dreams, and being there for her alone is what changes her fate. She goes from wanting to follow Eiichi into the afterlife to becoming curious about what good quality it is in her that everyone else sees. How is everyone working so hard for her as Full Moon? How can she enjoy singing this much? How can Takuto love her with all of his heart despite her love for Eiichi still being there? She has this impact on every person she meets that makes them want to become better versions of themselves and protect her in the process. That has to make her worthy of love and worthy of living in some way at least. And because this love people have for her is making her life a little brighter more and more each day, Mitsuki wants to continue searching for this light inside of herself, this full moon that's shining thanks to the help and love of others. What the? I don't know what to say, guys. I thoroughly loved the series. And I'm glad I got to appreciate its message as an adult, because I don't think 11-year-old me would have gotten it. I don't think it would have hit as hard. The series seemed to do moderately well in Japan at the time. I mean, popular enough to get an anime adaptation by chapter 4. But I don't think the anime landed in the way they had hoped. And the anime had a bit of a toyetic aspect to it to, you know, bring those sales in. Halfway through, Mitsuki makes this necklace that suddenly becomes this key piece of her transformation into a 16-year-old. It's absolutely hideous, but okay. And in her grandmother's shed, she finds this music box that was left behind by her parents. It plays one of Full Moon's big songs in the anime, Eternal Snow. I burst out laughing when Takuto transformed it into the most toyish looking thing right before our eyes. The subtlety was out the window. I would love to show you what the toy version of this looks like in real life, if only it didn't cost this much money. Yeah. Apparently, due to low sales, not many of these were produced, so now only a handful exist in the world. New Holy Grail, anyone? But despite this, Full Moon seemed to be a hit in Korea. All of the anniversary clothing and merchandise that you would typically see coming out of Japan, you can find on the Korean secondhand market because it was well loved over there. Where do you think I got this outfit from? It says, can you see? There's a tag. It says Talpi Chonsa. She can read basic Korean. Well, regardless of its popularity, this manga's art is so gorgeous, it's so worth reading. And Full Moon's early 2000s fashion in the anime had me taking screenshots. She was serving. I was so inspired that I freaking went to Joann's, man, and I bought this fluffy fabric to make the fluffy scrunchies like Full Moon wears in that iconic white pant outfit. I had a lot of extra fabric, so I made more. I
figured maybe I could do a little treat or something, so I put the extras up for purchase on my Mercari page. I don't know, I thought the moon and star charms were cute. It's handmade by me. So anyone who wants those can go ahead and grab them. The link will be in the description. There are only 6 though. There are only 6, so I'm sorry if these are somehow like desirable and I didn't make enough for as many people who wanted them. But let me know if this is like a cool idea. It's like interactive. Maybe I can do something like this again in the future. I think the elephant in the room is that Full Moon isn't exclusively a magical girl series, so to speak. But maybe you can tell from my most recent videos, I'm kind of just looking at any magical anime or manga series that is girly or made for girls. It's just what I've always been into based on my track record. If you want to watch Full Moon wo Sagashite, there will be a Blu-ray release in 2025, licensed by Manga. It's the first of its kind, so I hope it's remastered and all of that good stuff. More legal releases of magical shoujo titles, please. But that is all I have for now, and until next time, I'll see you in my dreams. Bye, friend.